Her father was the godfather of soul and one of the most important and influential artists in music history. And he provided the soundtrack for so many lives with classics like I Feel Good. You know that one? Oh, yeah. Living in America. And It's a Man's World.
Yes, it's a man's world. Oh, sorry, getting carried away. And here to discuss the upcoming James Brown biopic, Get On Up, and how her family's foundation is keeping her father's legacy alive is Deanna Brown. Welcome to Arise.
Thank you so very much. You keep your day job, but you got a beautiful voice.
Thank you.
Oh, please, I see her head growing already.
I love her already. You can say whatever you'd like now.
Bless you. Thank you for having me.
You know, like we mentioned in the intro, he did provide the soundtrack for so many lives. He was a rock star, a legend to all of us, but he was your father. What was it like growing up with the Godfather as your father?
Well, y'all know the song "Papa Don't Take No Mess" that he wrote, and I lived. My father was a very strict father.
Really?
Yes, he was. He was an uneducated man because he had to stop school in the 7th grade because of insufficient clothing, because my grandparents were so poor in the South and back in the 30s. And so he had to stop school at the 7th grade and begin to work. He buck danced for the soldiers in Fort Gordon in Augusta, Georgia. He carried old ladies' bags, grocery bags to wherever they needed to go for nickels and dimes, whatever he could do. He picked up coal on the railroad, whatever he could do, just to make a few pennies to take home. So for a man who came from that type of poor background, he really and truly made an impact that will never die.
Wow. Now, because he wasn't able to finish school, do you think he stressed the importance of education
That's
to you?
exactly
I know you went to
why
Columbia.
he knew how important an education was. He couldn't get one, but he used every gift God gave him.
Yeah. He sure did. And he was a natural talent.
Yes, yes he was. My father was born stillborn.
Is that right?
He was born stillborn, and in those days, he was born in an old shack in Barnwell, South Carolina, and the midwife that they called him then that delivered him, when he was delivered, he wasn't breathing, he wasn't speaking, he wasn't doing anything. And so I guess, you know, after whatever they did, ow came out, and there he was.
Now it all makes sense.
It all makes sense.
And he used his voice from that day on, didn't
Yes,
he?
every gift God gave him, he used for over 50 years in the music industry. I learned so much from my father, traveling around the world with him, being vice president of James Brown Enterprises, and I traveled around the world. I did his hair.
You did his hair?
I did his hair for him for a few years. Yeah, and that was a science. You had to learn how to roll his hair. It was a special way.
He was very specific.
Very specific.
His visual, his aesthetic was very important.
Oh, it was very important.
To him.
His hair, his teeth, and his feet was very important.
Tell me you didn't do the feet, too.
Well, you know, it's really something about my dad because he never had any, you know, I mean, he'd get massages on his feet, but he never had any real problems where he had to go have surgery or anything like that.
With all that dancing?
With all of that dancing, yes.
My goodness.
You mentioned learning a lot from him. What's the greatest lesson you ever learned from him?
To give back and to not forget where you came from. Now, I, of course, did not grow up like my father. I was born into a privileged life, but my father, he didn't raise me that way. He raised me to, look, you got to work hard. You know, yes, you're Deanna Brown, you're my daughter, but when you get through the door, you got to show that you can get the job done. Okay, you got to make your own way, little girl. You know, so my name will get you in the door, but then you got to prove that you can make it happen.
Yeah, you got to stay in the room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from him being on the road. That was my life's best teaching, traveling around the world with my father and seeing him at work. He had a motto about show business.
What was it?
75-25% motto.
What does that mean?
The 75% part of show business is the business of show business.
Okay.
That's getting your contracts right. That's understanding your contracts.
Getting your money.
Getting your money, making sure folks don't rip you off. And then the 25% is on the stage. That's the show. So if you don't have that 75% taken care of, by the time you get to that camera and that stage, it could just be just for show.
Just for show.
Speaking of
no business.
No business.
Let's talk about the upcoming biopic. Yes.
August the 1st, it's going to be released.
Did your family play any role in making that a reality?
We were consultants, me and my sister Yama and my mother, Deirdre Jenkins, and Jill Scott plays my mother in the film.
Wow.
As a matter of
That's
fact,
incredible.
yes.
How did she do?
Well, I'll see this weekend. We do get the opportunity to have a private family screening this weekend.
That's great.
So we look forward to that. But this is going to be a movie that's going to show you different aspects of my father. And again, like coming from that poor, humble background and to going into a career where he was able to perform for kings and queens and prime ministers and presidents. You know, it's like the young poor black boy from South Carolina, and now he's known all over the world. Whether you speak English or not, you know James Brown. I feel good. I traveled on a Scandinavian tour with my dad one time, and it was just amazing to see those people literally just like worship him. You know, I mean, I'm sitting back like, they okay?
My parents are from Nigeria, and James Brown was the cultural ambassador for America.
Oh, yes, definitely. And, you know, going through the civil rights period, making Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, speaking to the masses from Washington, D.C. for President Johnson, you know, urging people to not loot, not burn down your communities, respect your communities, and go into your homes. They listened
to him.
And they listened to him.
He helped quell a lot of the riots.
There is a DVD out called The Night James Brown Saved Boston, because every other major city during that time after Martin Luther King was assassinated was burning down. Every other city, L.A., Chicago, New York, every other city, major city. But Boston was cool because James Brown was performing that night, and they watched him on TV. They either stayed in their homes and watched him on TV, or they did go to the show, which did not allow any problems in Boston.
Wow. Well, you know, we just saw a clip of Chadwick Boseman, who played Jackie Robinson in the movie 42.
Who is from South Carolina as well.
So really? Perfect.
Yes.
He moved like he was from South Carolina. Do you think he was able to pull off your father's
Southern in you.
What did you think about the selection of him to play your father, and was he able to pull off your father's moves?
Well, Chadwick, I met him, and he's a nice young man. And I told him, I says, look, I hope this is a blessing for your career. I know this is about my father, but I hope that it's a blessing for your career, because I know that's what my father would tell him.
That's true.
And he was a very humble young man, which spoke volumes to me. He didn't come across as arrogant, and, yeah, I got the part, you know. He didn't do that. He was more like, help, you know, what kind of innuendos, what kind of moves, what kind of things did he say and do so that he could kind of be,
what advice did you give him about playing your father?
Well, I told him my dad was a no-nonsense man.
Okay.
That's number one. He did not play. And when it was time to hit that stage, the band better hit it, and they better hit it right. Because he would find them. If he walked up to you and he started doing like that, you better count, because that means how much money he's going to take off your pay at the end of the night.
He's docking you.
If your shoes were not shined, if your clothes were not groomed correctly, if you hit the wrong note. I talked to one of the backup singers, and she told me, she says, you know, sometimes some of the guys would think they got away if Dad didn't say anything right away, but then at the end of the show, he'd say, get such and such in my room. And so you don't get away with it. But he was a perfectionist.
I gotta try that.
He wanted everybody. He
wanted everybody.
Yeah, he wanted everybody to get it right, because that's all he had. All he had was his show and his music, and he wanted it so we could be here talking about it way after his lifetime.
Well, before you go, you also have to talk a little bit about your organizations. You oversee the James Brown Family Foundation and the James Brown Academy of Music Pupils. So tell us about those and how they're helping to keep your father's legacy alive.
Well, my father was a true giver. He grew up poor, and over 24 years ago, he started the annual James Brown Turkey and Toy Giveaway. Went back to his old community to give away turkeys and toys to those who didn't make it out the hood like him. So we started that for that, but then we said, look, this foundation is a bit deeper than just giving away these turkeys and toys. And music education had a special place in my father's heart. So I was so happy to have gotten those phone calls at 1, 2, and 3 in the morning from Dad. dropping knowledge in my ear. Now, y'all know when he was calling me, I didn't want to talk to him at that time. But he was dropping so much knowledge and wisdom into my ear. He put me in radio and television. So when the music began to change and the lyrics began to change in music, Dad didn't like that because he felt like I worked hard so that these young artists could be able to walk through these doors and sit down and talk to these executives and make these deals. You know, I worked hard going in cities where blacks couldn't be in certain hotels or go past certain streets, you know. So it bothered him and it hurt him to hear lyrics degrade women, degrade cultures and races. So when I sat down with C.H. Terrell Academy, a private school in Augusta, Georgia, where Dad's from, I talked with them and I let them know what Dad told me about the music and how it has to stay in the schools. Because if you take the music and arts out of the schools, you're going to see these young kids killing each other all the time. Those were my father's words. So what do we see on the news every night? So to be able to put that group together, James Brown Academy of Music Pupils, they learn music theory, they learn instrumentation. These students are multi-talented, they sing, they on 2 or 3 instruments. I mean, I have a female bass player who also sings opera.
Wow.
It's amazing. And when you put an instrument in a child's hand, you see a miracle happen.
Wow.
And I've seen that. We've got them all from affluent families to low-income families who need scholarships. But these children come together, black, white, Latino, and they play, and they're playing songs that their grandparents grew up on. Okay, they're playing songs that are 40 years old. Okay, and they're into it.
They're jamming.
They are jamming, and they love it. So I see that.
Before you go, what is your favorite James Brown song?
Wow, I got to tell you, ever since I've been working with these children, I did radio, and I used to go off my radio show with "Don't Be a Dropout," because education is key. You have that, you have nothing, and that would probably be my favorite because you can damn, but then there's that message that means a lot.
Well, what a perfect way to end. Thank you so much on that note.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we can't wait to see the biopic. Get
August
on up.
1st,
August
be there.
1st. We'll be right back with more Rise Entertainment 360.